All right, there you are now. You're very welcome along to Tuesday mornings off the ball. We've been getting a lot of grief about not actually drinking out of these cups. There's a big debate going on at the minute. Shane, you're welcome. How are you doing?
Not too bad. How are you?
My concern is that dishwashers, everything fades really quickly.
It's fairly dusty.
They are very dusty. Also, you wouldn't want to drink out of them. You know, you'd need to put them through the dishwasher. I don't know. I mean, like, they're just a comedy prop. And yet everybody's complaining. Yesterday we had 2 cups on the desk, and it was like a big deal that there were too many cups because there's too few people. A
bugbear of mine around here is the fact that the hurley is very much unused, and the size 4 litre with it, no. I'll have to sort that out.
I'm letting you in on a little secret here. We stole this hurl from our colleagues at Today FM, and that's stuck. It's
proven to be a sham. How surprising.
We couldn't actually get it off. If only we knew somebody who was a hurler who could donate something to us that was real.
I had 2 hurleys left in here for months and months on end. One that I think had been used in a Munster final by the brother Paddy.
Oh yeah?
Yeah.
And left it lying around?
You stayed looking at it.
Well, where is it now?
Sure, God knows.
Did Oisin steal it?
He probably did.
Yeah, okay. So Shane is in today, obviously. Shane is a very famous media whore. You can see his profile pics here, here, here and here. Have a look at these. Every bit of media that Cool have had to do in advance of the All-Ireland series or Leinster series this year has been done by this man.
That's not bad.
You're a bit of a poser, it turns out.
But you're being told to pose.
This is red steel. Yeah, but you're volunteering for it too.
No, I'm being asked.
Could I
put myself on the line for the team?
If nobody else wants to do media this week, I'll put my hand up. Are you not doing yourself out of a... Oh, I get it now. You get paid to do this, right?
I actually don't. It goes to the team. It goes to the club.
Ah, right. So
yeah, everyone asks me, oh yeah, you must be raking it in.
You're literally doing yourself out of money because you would be at these gigs covering them.
Yeah, I would.
Interviewing your teammate going.
And people keep asking me, am I going to do the Zlatan soon where I interview myself?
I mean...
And it's pretty close at this point, let's be fair.
You could have just answered that question yourself there. So what would you do if it was one of your teammates? You'd be like, here, listen, whatever you say nothing, or give me some of the good stuff.
Oh, I've had to do it. Like last year, Con O'Callaghan got the AIB Leinster Club Player of the Year, and I had to interview him afterwards. But, you know, it's fine. He knows. He's just coming in smirking, going, how you Staple, you know, and this kind of crack. And
yeah.
I just tell him, I'm going to ask you about this, and on we go, and it's fine.
Yeah.
And when you're up front with people, I mean, I do that at times with interviews. I give guys the flavour of what I'm going to talk about just to relax them.
Yeah.
I think it makes it easier. They trust you a little bit more, and they don't feel like there's something unexpected on the way.
Well, that's a tactic, right? Because you put them at ease, and they begin to think about stuff.
Lull them.
Then they begin to have some sense of what they want to say, and that makes them more fluent. Or you kind of shock them into, I want to get somewhere with you. We'll talk about this a little bit later on because obviously there's been some good stuff recently. But just apropos of nothing, the documentary was on last night, Blue Sisters.
Yeah.
And I think it would be great if every team had a documentary made about them and the cameras were there the whole time and everybody got used to it. And this just started to be pumped out into the Irish sports culture.
Yeah, you look at the NFL and America's Game and all these different documentaries. You know, every week you can hear what was on the mic and what players are saying to each other. It's fantastic. And it'd be great because in the GA world, everyone's so afraid of saying anything. It's all about, you know, keep the circle tight, don't say anything to the media. But, you know, conversely, if nobody talks, then, you know, there's a culture of not talking. Whereas if everyone talks, there's noise coming from all directions and it doesn't really matter. It's like, you know, with the boxers, they all come out with ultra bravado, the exact opposite of the likes of soccer and GAA, because it's one person speaking for themselves.
Yeah.
They're trying to sell a fight, so they have to say the most bombastic things possible, and it gets to the point where that's just as ineffective. And it'd be great if everyone just felt like they could talk, so then you wouldn't have a furore over somebody saying just a tiny little thing that doesn't really matter that much. We
definitely seem to overreact to a lot of stuff that gets spoken about. Here's what's coming up on the show a little bit later on today. Micheál Lundy, we're going to talk about him. Was on Off the Ball on the radio last night talking about missing out on Connacht title with Galway. And Micheál's one of those players who everybody knows a little bit about, but not that much about. And actually, because he's now involved with Corofin in the club championship, we're getting to know him a bit more, and his character is emerging. And you know what? The world is not falling apart because GAA player is talking to. That's, I think, one of the best things about the AAB Club Championship is that actually we get to know far more about players. That's coming up a little bit later on in the programme. Rugby Snobbery, we have the biggest rugby snob, anti-rugby snob in Ireland in studio today, and luckily Neil Tracy wrote a piece on the offtheball.com website last night calling out the rugby snob, so we'll put that to Shane a little bit later on as well. If anybody wants to get in touch about that, you can tweet us here. at Off the Ball. Mona McSharry is an absolute superstar in the making. She's a 17-year-old, has already stood on the podium and listened to the Irish National Anthem at a World Championships, the World Juniors. She won gold last August, having already performed brilliantly at the European Championship. So she's going to join us in studio to talk to us a little bit about her plans for the Olympic Games. We're running through the back pages, and we'll also talk about some of the more GAA stories that we have. Some great work that Shane has been doing just recently with some of the interviews that we've been playing out alongside Joseph Conroy. You probably have seen, most of you at this stage who watch this show have seen some of those videos, because they're vastly outperforming this Daily Show. So so everybody's seen them. We'll talk about why we're doing them and why they work, and actually maybe it's a counterpoint to the point we just made about everybody being frightened to talk about stuff. So let's run you through the back pages first. This morning we're going to start, I think, with the Irish Independent. That's our first port of call this morning. Sam Allardyce on the back page of all of the newspapers this morning. Allardyce talks cool chances of O'Neill move.
Maybe that's why this show isn't performing too well. A few elocution classes wouldn't go straight.
Jesus Christ.
These and those.
I was like, Allardyce talks, he's saying, and then I was like, cool chances of O'Neill move. Okay, I get it now. Allardyce talks, comma, cool chances of O'Neill move.
You're correcting the sub-editors in there, are you?
Well, I'm just saying, you know. Fogarty, McGrath and Cronin will bounce back for Leinster. So the Leinster scrum coach, John Fogarty, has been out talking about Jack McGrath and Sean Cronin, both of whom you would think are thereabouts when it comes to an Ireland team, certainly 6 months ago. Neither of whom seem to be first choice at the moment, but he reckons that it's nothing terminal in either of their careers. Shoot me now.
I'd imagine they're not getting to the emotional pitch, those players.
Ah, shut up.
Yeah, it's similar stuff in the Times as well. Keane wants to stay until Euro 2020, which kind of means
Martin O'Neill wants to stay until 2020?
Yeah, actually it's interesting people talking about the fact that Keane might step up and take the job himself as manager, which would be quite a promotion from tea lady, as he tries to suggest himself. Obviously Everton back to Allardyce, he had they'd kind of cooled on their interest, and now they're coming back, and he'll probably basically hold them to ransom at this point.
Apparently they offered him the gig for like
the rest of the season, wasn't it?
Yeah, and now he wants it for 3 years and he wants $4 million a year, because you know what, you haven't got a manager, and actually suddenly I've got a really strong bargaining position. Like,
I was a Blackburn fan. I mean, who could continue to have interest? I presume it's like Leeds United fans. You go down to the 3rd division and you're like, you're some man if you keep supporting them at that stage, because you haven't grown up with the team.
You're not a glory hunter, you mean?
Yeah. Who do you support?
Aston Villa.
Aston Villa. Are you hanging on?
It's just about, yeah.
Yeah. Go down another division, and I doubt it. But like, he took over Blackburn in something like 2009. Chris Samba went up front, the 6'4" defender. It was a horror show to watch. It really was terrible. Now, it got worse when Steve Keane took over.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be pretty, but he will get them safe if he is there. I think everyone would kind of agree on that. And then the other story, Ireland move up rankings, got up to 3rd in the world rankings because 14-man Australia lost to Scotland 53-24 in Murrayfield on Saturday.
Yeah, so world rankings matter, it turns out, in rugby. That's something that is actually important, so these aren't friendlies. That's the gist of Neil Tracy's piece. You can hear the smirking coming from Shane Stapleton. We'll deal with that in a couple of minutes' time. Our next port of call is the Irish Times. The Irish Times here talking about the return of Eric Lamela. It's been a year since he started a game for Spurs. Spurs in action at Leicester tonight. Young expects a tough night on return to Watford, so there's a full slate of Premier League games. Running through those fixtures a little bit later on. And then Allardyce favourite to be new Everton manager. That's the story there. And Quinn unfazed by task of containing European champions. This is a massive qualifier for the Republic of Ireland women's football team tonight. It's in Holland against the European champions, and it's in front of a packed crowd of 12,000. So that's a sold-out arena, and both teams have 100% records so far. Granted, 2 games into the competition, but a big chance for Ireland to take a big step forward towards qualifying for the tournament.
So I'm probably going to upset the producer now by jumping into the Irish Examiner, not just going with the back page, so sorry about that one, Tommy. It's just looking at Colm Cooper, who of course has been retired in the papers this week, more or less, because he didn't give an exhibition against Nemo when they lost when Dr. Crokes lost the Munster final. But I'm just going to read out a couple of his quotes here, because I found it quite interesting. A piece with Michael Moynihan. I'm certainly not the only one, or the only player in Ireland to have a bad game in a county final or Munster final or divisional final. I'm not the only player to miss a free or 2 frees, but if some people want to pick issues in that, that's theirs. That's up to them. My issue is that I didn't play well yesterday along with a lot of my teammates. That's the most disappointing thing. That's sport. But if people want to pick holes and say I should retire because I didn't play well, that's silly. And he did have a good county championship. I was down at the county semi-final against South Kerry, West Kerry in fact, and people were lauding his performance. And that was in a week where he'd been away for some reason. He'd done a late show. He had 3 big things on.
The testimonial?
Yeah, the testimonial thing.
How could you forget the testimonial? The biggest story in Irish sport this year.
Yeah, and he ended up getting man of the match. Now, I think it was a slightly generous man of the match that we gave on Air TV to him just to get the interview with him. Hey, you know how these things work. Yeah. But, you know, like retiring lad just because he's retired from inter-county and he's 33 or is he gone 34? It's very premature. If he's still lighting it up in the county championship and enjoying it, on you go. Can't
Gooch play until he's about 40 by coming out to play in that pocket between midfield and half-forward line and just ping balls in? Yeah, but at club level now, like, because people assume that inter-county is the only place that real heavy tactics are involved, but at club level now, what will simply happen is, because he's considered the orchestrator, the guy who can come out and do that quarterback role, that jaded old term, he will have a man marker and they'll put the most athletic player they can possible on him just to make sure they snuff him out. And then you've got a second person who just... So if he's being man marked, that takes somebody out of the game. They don't have... Most club teams don't have 2 good man markers. So presumably Crokes have somebody else who can play that orchestrator role and he can do a bit of dummying around. So you're telling him play the James O'Donoghue 2014 All-Ireland and get Footballer of the Year for playing the decoy role? Well, why not? Well, actually, he was good enough to be Footballer of the Year that year. I'm being a little bit facetious. And the other thing is that, like, Gooch is smart enough to be able to ghost into positions and lose markers and stuff. Yeah, he could do that, but like, it's gone to the stage. Well, it's long gone to the stage whereby the guy who's man marking him won't be fixated on the ball at any point, and he probably won't even be looking at the ball. Yeah. Remember was it Justin or Joe McMahon who was man marking Michael Murphy a few times, and there was clips whereby the ball would be over there. You're Murphy, because you look very similar. I'm Joe McMahon, and I'm just looking at it, and I don't care about the ball. Yeah. And it's very much at that level of club now as well. So it's going to be tough for him, especially when you're 33 or 34, and it's as hard to keep making those darting runs from left and right to shake somebody off. How old are you now? 35. Are you? Yeah. Right. I didn't know. Thanks for bringing that up. Jesus, all right. And yet you're going again next year? We go again. We go again. Right, Noel Cowell on Periscope asks, where can we get those fabulous off the ball? They're limited edition. That's why we're smearing the table with them to make it look like we're busy here. Want to disinfect it first anyway. It's a prop. Michael Burney, top class show about Blue Sisters. The Doves were a credit to themselves. Thanks very much for that, Michael. I mean, here's the thing, like, of course they're going to be a credit to themselves. They're an All-Ireland winning team who've dedicated this 12-month period, and in their case, the last 4 years, to trying to win an All-Ireland. So, like... The Dublin ladies team? Yeah. Yeah, fantastic. There was a media game about 4 or 5 years ago, and so it's the Croke Park media staff against the media staff, and a few of the ladies footballers from Dublin were brought in to play the game, and I was on the media side, which had some absolute jokers on the team in great old Nick. But Lindsay Davey was playing, and so was Sinead Goldrick, and I just couldn't get over the pace of them. They were just darting around the place, great footballers. It's no surprise to see them winning All-Ireland either, obviously. Here's the mail today. Save us, Sam. Now Everton moved back in for Allardyce, so this looks like a done deal because all the newspapers are reporting it last night. I wonder which side actually leaked it. It's in both their interests, I suspect, at this point, to make it look like a deal is being done. And Tiger's Eye is on the ball again. This is comeback number 622 for Tiger Woods. Apparently he looks better than ever and he's out driving all his playing partners and he's going to play golf for the next 2. Tiger Woods is never going to be a relevant golfer again in competition. That's my prediction from 3.5 years ago. It's my prediction still to this point. You can't surgically fuse your spine back together and then go, I can play golf against all these kids who are like way ahead of me. Is he going to remain interesting and relevant because it's we're just happy to watch the car crash in a prurient little way of ours? I think so, yeah. I think that's about the best that Tiger can hope for. Maybe there's a possibility that some of the links courses where he doesn't need to ping the ball and to, like, he's apparently out driving some of the biggest drivers in the world. Patrick Reed was mentioned, and Dustin Johnson was mentioned. You're having a nightmare, Sam. There you go. But like, if he's trying to do that, this is going to break down again inside possibly the next 3 days, but definitely over the long to interim period of time. So I'm out on the Tiger comeback.
Yeah, thank God. Just looking at the start, Tuam lockout beyond a joke. So this is where the Castlebar Mitchell players hopped the wall to get access to the pitch there the other day. And so the Star Sport has learned that the stewards at the gate refused to open it after Castlebar arrived 4 minutes early for their pre-match warm-up routine. That is something that you'll see time and again.
Whoa!
I'm out on time.
You're supposed to put that on silent.
Just looking at
They're very professional.
The Facebook notification popped up. We're live on Facebook, and it turns out we are live on Facebook. So hello, we're through the looking glass here, folks. Jesus.
Thanks, Fred. So, Jared,
What are you saying there, Shane? Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'm not sure if anyone got it. So, basically, talking about the story where the Castlebar players hopped the wall to get access to the pitch because they were 4 minutes early and the stewards wouldn't open the gate. There is a lot of that in the GA now where, and I don't know about other sports, but certainly in the GA, we're getting, you very much, this is the time you come out. And it's very much run. I'm trying to not use the word, certain particular words about it, but they're very strict on it. And like you'll see in Dublin GA that players aren't, like if you're a substitute in a competing team, the substitutes on both teams, they're not allowed to actually warm up on the field. So you might try and go down to the end line and you'll work away and start striking the ball and you're told...
So give me specifics here. You're talking about like a match at Parnell Park, Cooler playing a championship game, you're a sub obviously, and you want to go out at half time to keep the hands warm. Yeah.
A man with a cold hands is a man with a warm heart, as they say. Anyway, so you go and you try and warm up at half time, puck the ball around, and it's the same for both teams obviously, and you're told you're not allowed on the field. So then you go up to the end line and there's kids all over the field pucking ball. So you go to the end line and you try and warm up there and you're pucking around and you're told, no, you're not allowed to puck around. And then you turn around and then a camera woman or man is saying, I'm trying to work here. Can you at least let me do my job? And you look around and you think, does anyone realise that we're actually trying to play a game here and prepare for a big match? So that's just the way it is. Like.
So you've pissed off the camera staff, you've pissed off the security people, you've pissed off the kids on the pitch, and all because you just want to warm up your hands.
Yeah, and you have to ask, like, why is anyone here at all in the first place? I mean, we're actually here trying to play a match. And I remember a county final in 2012 when we lost to Kilmacud Crokes. I came on and had an absolute stinker in the second half, really terrible. And but I wasn't allowed to warm up at any stage. So probably the last time I'd struck a ball was maybe an hour before I came on. So you haven't done any runs, you haven't pucked the ball, your hands are freezing. And in hurling, that's definitely a big part. But yeah, that's the sort of story that I hate seeing in the GA, but it's just an everyday sort of thing now.
Yeah, I wonder, is it just about insurance? There's not actually jobs worth. It's not just people being jobs worth. That it's costing the GA money in insurance claims and insurance premiums, and a kid on the field at half time gets hit with a ball in the head and suddenly it's like this massive thing. And maybe there is some reason for it. It's not just somebody...
Oh, it is a liability issue. And the thing is, like, do you say it's more important to have the kids on the field at half time, which it is hugely important to have the kids on at half time, because you obviously want to win the hearts and minds and make sure rugby doesn't get these young kids, rather than... Well, like, should the players be allowed to have the field at half time?
Yeah.
And I mean, by right, the players should have it, but you still want to look after the kids.
Ideally, there's a warm-up area for in most places where these games are being played, but it turns out there isn't. Kieran D on Twitter says, Ger, can you do me a favour and take down the Spurs programme on the table? I realise there's now a PlayStation game up against it, but still, you can see the top of Ericsson's head. The pain is still there. No, we're leaving it there. We're leaving Christian Ericsson's head.
Where's this?
It's behind the PlayStation game. Behind the Gaelic Games there. Yeah, so what's that, some Sunderland, and then Christian Eriksen was there, and he's been there all week, and he's been there since he killed Ireland at Lansdowne Road. I mean, we're going to leave it there because ultimately we have to learn from our mistakes.
With Ireland?
It's only through learning and by honestly assessing what went wrong
Let's work
that we
on
can
that
progress.
That diamond's going to work eventually.
You'd say that's a work on, would you?
Yeah, I would, learning.
The Star, I think, is next.
I just did the Star.
Okay, the Sun is next. So we haven't done the front pages. There's an interesting story in the front pages with an unnamed Irish sports person. Sam Old Faces. The Sun are getting bored of seeing Alan Pardew and Big Sam. Alan Pardew's getting the West Brom job. Big Sam's getting the Everton job. Whelan back in the big time. Conor Whelan did press yesterday and is all over the newspapers today. He seems like a really interesting character, and he's talking about his own transition from being somebody who couldn't finish out games to somebody who was going strong in the last 10 minutes of matches. He puts it down to the Polish strength and conditioning coach whose name escapes me.
Lucas Kirchenstein.
There you go. And then Arsene Wenger's done a comedy Christmas jumper video routine, which probably doesn't deserve any more time.
Yeah, and the Mirror, it's a lot of the same stuff in all the papers. So paid against Sam. Everton are ready to accept Sam Allardyce's hardball demands. Pards is poised to face Palace. He's set to land a West Brom job. And Chelsea told Aubameyang is for sale. Class striker. He's netted 17 goals in 19 games this season, so he'd be some sign.
The newspapers, if you go into any of your newsagents today and look at the front pages, you're going to be able to piece together more details on this. That's as far as I'm willing to go this morning. Anyway, Star beats up cartel thugs pal. This is the story of a well-known sports star assaulted a close associate of a senior Kinahan cartel henchman in a South Dublin pub.
Who could that be? So at the back of the Herald, Jose, it'll be tough. Mourinho warning for United as Zlatan eyes his first start. So they're against Watford. I actually look at how cool Marco Silva is, and I wonder, could Leo Varadkar, instead of spending 5 million on a PR wing, find out whoever is looking after how cool Marco Silva is and hire that guy?
Is it just a stylist?
Yeah, possibly.
It's just his clothes, it's not like actually how he comes across or speaks or runs his organisation.
He's Mourinho light. He is pretty slick, to be fair to him. You do look at him times and think, yeah, I'd like a bit of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know how that sounds. That's not what I meant.
Right, let's move on. Alan Dillon has announced his retirement this morning. The statement has come through. Everyone has their time. My time has come. Today I wish to announce my inter-county retirement from the Mayo senior football team. He thanks his wife, his parents, his brother, his sister and close family and friends, and he wants to thank the GPA. I will always be eternally grateful to my club Ballintubber GAA. Their backing has enabled me to compete at the very highest level and follow my boyhood dream of playing for Mayo. 8 Connacht Championships, 2 All-Stars in 2006 and 2012, 2 Connacht Championships under 21, 2 minor Connacht Championships, 1 All-Ireland Inter-County Vocational Schools title, 3 Mayo GAA Senior County titles at Ballintubber. Just one thing missing.
And he's lost a lot of All-Irelands between minor under 21 and seniors. It's something like 9 All-Ireland finals, so that's been tough for him to take, I'm sure. But a class player to watch in his heyday.
Ah, brilliant.
Yeah.
And like, definitely, it feels to me like there's a culture in a lot of Irish sport where you get over the age of 30 and you're done. You can never contribute anything. And
I did a piece for the Sindo about this. Like, it's ridiculous. You look at the players that were nominated for All-Stars this year, and certainly that were nominated for Football
Andy Moran,
David Clark,
yeah.
Stephen Cluxton. You look in hurling, Kevin Moran, 30, Brick Walsh, 34. Tipperary, I think, have suffered this year from getting rid of some of their players that are in around 30, 31 too soon. Like, if you look after the player and look after his training regime, you can keep that experience on. Why get rid of someone because they've turned 31 for a guy who's 19 and has great potential, until that potential has surpassed the experienced guy?
There is a young man in 04 scoring that goal against Kerry. So the Maldini project was this AC Milan thing where they got a lot of science. Now, obviously, it's Italian sport, so knowing what you know now, everybody's a little bit dubious about how they managed to get all their players to last for so long. But notwithstanding whatever else was happening, they managed to keep them physically fit. Like, they managed not to get the types of injuries that loads of people do. And part of that was proper rest, and part of that was proper recuperation. And, part of that was Italian sports science. But you do realise the value of having very experienced players on the field at key moments, as opposed to lads who are physically fit, who are going to run all day, who know exactly what they're supposed to do when the going is good. But it's that know-how at the end of matches that certainly as you get older you realise actually maybe experience is a very undervalued thing.
Yeah, like, look at the Dublin football panel. They were able to bring in like Paul Flynn, 30, Diarmuid Connolly, 30, Bernard Brogan, 33 or 34, I'm not 100% sure. You keep going through the 2 teams that were challenging for All-Irelands this year, which was Mayo and Dublin, and you think there are a huge amount of guys over 30. Keith Higgins, sensational. Colin Boyle, over 30. So if you look after your players, like Sean Armstrong made a comeback this year for Galway, and he had to adjust his training. So he was being pushed hard at the start, and he broke down because he has an on-running back issue. And he had a chat with Kevin Walsh and the medical staff. So a lot of time he'd stand out when they're having a heavy session, and he might do some aqua running. And eventually he ended up being an excellent player over the course of the season because they looked after him. So you tailor the training needs of the older players, and you still have them ready to go.
All right, we've also got the Irish news for you as well. We'll leave that there, but if anybody's any Alan Dillon stuff you want to get off your chest, you can tweet us at Off The Ball or facebook.com/Off The Ball. The Irish news, Antrim officials feel County is firmly on the up. There's a selection convention coming up on the Antrim County Board, and Rogers style in our DNA now, says Brown. This is after Celtic won the League Cup at the weekend. Brendan Rodgers doing a good job there.
He is, but who's watching? If a tree falls and nobody's watching...
The Celtic fans are watching for sure. And then finally, the Racing Post, beware of high-flying hornets. This is it's Shane Stapleton's beloved Watford, or maybe it's just Marco Silva up against Manchester United tonight. The Racing Post reckon that they'll score at least against United. And Sam Crowe hailed as a future Gold Cup winner. This is a novice Sam Crowe. Barry O'Neill, the amateur jockey who rode him in a point-to-point, thinks he's a Cheltenham Gold Cup winner in the waiting. Just to run you through some of the headlines, obviously Sam Allardyce is the main story across all the newspapers and across all the sports bulletins this morning. It looks like he's going to be appointed the new Everton boss. Man United had the chance to cut the gap at the top of the Premier League to just 5 points. They take on Watford. Eric Lamela could well play his first game for Spurs in a year in their match at Leicester. West Brom, who still are technically managerless, although it looks like Alan Pardew is about to get that job, take on Newcastle, who are looking for their first win in 5 games. And Palace look to build on their weekend win against Stoke when they travel to Brighton and Hove Albion. It turns out Palace and Brighton have this crazy rivalry going back to the 1970s when Alan Mullery, who was then the Palace manager, gave the Brighton fans the finger. And since then, the two clubs have absolutely hated each other. Properly hated each other.
All over flipping the bird.
Alan Mullery, like, you know.
The most inoffensive of them all.
like, Jesus. A couple of games in the Championship as well. The big news from an Irish football perspective, Colin Bell's Republic of Ireland women's football team are taking on the Dutch tonight. That one kicks off at 7. Ireland have already beaten Northern Ireland and Slovakia, so they've got 6 points from their 2 games. The Dutch also have 6 points. So at the top of the table, clash kick off, and that one is at 7. And Tiger Woods has been paired alongside Justin Thomas for the first 2 rounds of the Hero World Challenge. Everybody's going to watch who likes golf, and then everybody's going to be disappointed when he breaks down. That's what's going to happen. Right, let's move on. We're going to have this rugby discussion. Brian O'Driscoll was in with Eddie O'Sullivan on Monday Night Rugby on Off The Ball on the radio last night, and he thinks that Ireland are now the second best team in the world.
So where are we in that chasing pack then?
I think we're close. I think we're close to that, to the top. I think we're if we were on UK radio, I think we definitely wouldn't be ahead of them. We're on Irish radio. I think we're neck and neck with England. And I'm really interested to see what happens. I think a big test for Ireland come the final Six Nations game. You know, if both of us are in the same position of managing to win 4 games, and there's a lot of rugby still to be played, obviously. Sure. But I do think an opportunity to go and win in Twickenham against that side would set down a serious marker.
And that would be a big setback for them, because they're not quite firing on all cylinders at the moment. Like, their attack has not delivered on everything else. Like, let's be honest, their set piece always will be solid. Their continuity game is very strong, very physical at the breakdown. Their defence is very good. They have a top end place kicker in Farrell. So they don't have to play brilliant in attack to beat you. They can still beat you out the other ways. But if they're going to win a World Cup, they're going to have to develop an attack. And that's the one thing at the moment that seems missing out of the jigsaw. This ability to pick teams apart. It's not that they're not trying things, but they're not executing.
Do you think they have the players that can think their way through it?
One of the problems is they have to figure out what their midfield is. And they've yet to figure out. Eddie Jones, the same with Lancaster before him, they never actually figured out what was their best combination at 10, 12 and 13. And it's a good point. I'm not sure that they have the calibre of player needed in those positions that they had way back when they won before.
They have these phenomenal athletes, but I just don't know.
Difference.
I just don't know. Have they got the same thinkers that necessitates winning a World Cup?
Yeah, okay. So some good news really from an Irish perspective heading into the Six Nations there. We want to talk about this. Neil Tracy wrote this piece on offtheball.com. It's up there on the website now. We're getting a huge response on the Facebook page as well. You don't have to like rugby, but please spare us the smugness. King of smugness, Shane Stapleton, is with us in studio. How are you?
What's all this about?
So Neil's basic point is, fair enough, right? You hate rugby. Why do you have to be such a dick about it?
I don't hate the actual sport itself. It's the nonsense talk around it. And every time that you were interviewing someone and you mentioned to them, did they get to the emotional peak?
How many times have I ever asked anybody?
Oh,
did
you
they get to the emotional
100% have
peak?
said it. And you call some of the shots around here, so I don't like calling you out.
Go for it, come on. When did I ever say this?
You definitely do. Say in the interviews, when you're interviewing Bod or whatever, you talk about, did they get to the emotional peak? Come on, you've definitely said it. Don't tell me you haven't.
I've never said it.
You've definitely said it. But you know, it's definitely not the game. It's the nonsense talk around. I think some games are brilliant, some games are horrendous to watch, but like any sports like that. But
just to put this in some context, on Sunday in his column in the Sunday World, Pat Spillane was like, there's far too much coverage of rugby friendlies. The coverage is excessive. Why do we have to watch these rugby friendlies? I'm paraphrasing, right?
Yeah. So I to be honest, like I watched the 3 games. The 3 Guinness Series games, and I thought they were really poor, really boring to watch. Like the Fiji game
wasn't boring.
I thought it was, and I mean I watched it, and it was close.
Great,
but like you've lots of games and just for fairness, Wexford Waterford in the All Ireland quarter final last year was really close, but it was really, really boring as well. I thought that all the games were really boring. Like the Argentina game the other day was terrible as well.
Not a great game, but because there was no tension to it. Ireland were going to win that game from 5 minutes in. That was clear.
Like it was a chastening experience for me watching that game, because I'd come back from, I know we're going to talk about it shortly, but filming a piece down for Off the Ball Online in Galway, and I was coming back, and I called a friend of mine and I said, do you want to go and watch the soccer, Chelsea-Liverpool? So I went and I collected him. He lives in Kimmage, and there was a lot of traffic, and we said, okay, where'd we go? We ended up in Rathgar. We went into the pub. It was rugby on every screen, so we were like, do you know what, we'll watch it. And it's the only place I've ever been, and there was like oohs and ahs for a shimmy that didn't even beat a defender. Or every time there was a leg drive that they'd start going, whoa, go on giving it loads for. And I mean, it's great when Tyke Furlong busts through somebody.
Yeah,
but
it is great when Tyke Furlong does that.
Yeah, but
and what's wrong with enjoying that? And why do you have to sit there judging people enjoying this? Like you're the type of person who goes to watch a gig and goes, look at these people. This band are rubbish. The other band is playing to that tiny audience over there. They're far better.
Yeah, I loved that band until everyone else started liking them. Yeah.
Yeah, you are one of those people.
No,
yes.
Stop profiling me. But no, it's more like the emotional peak. Oh, let's be good on both sides of the ball, and work-ons and scrum time. You know, this whole thing now, this proliferation of time, the suffix time, scrum time, line-out time. Do you not find that all a bit nauseating?
Not really. Yeah. You just you can choose to ignore it. This is a thing that you don't actually have to be consumed by, right?
What do you tell someone who's OCD? I'm OCD. How do I ignore that? See, you've no answer.
I don't have an answer.
I can't ignore it.
I don't have an answer.
It's annoying, so I dislike it.
But you choose to allow it to annoy you, as opposed to...
No.
So you don't like
OCD
the sport and you don't like the stuff that goes around it. Now, we can't be having a discussion like that. That's the end of the discussion. It's like, I am what I am. But Neil's point is that there are a bunch of people out there like you who kind of tut at rugby fans for liking rugby.
Yeah, somebody tweeted, Cillian O'Crahur, a journalist, tweeted that... So it's a pity the Argentinians never show up in friendlies, and I just replied saying pity Ireland don't show up at World Cups, and that got a load of likes. So there are plenty. That was the only smart arse thing I tweeted over the last few days. I just I left it be. I didn't actually do what Neil Tracy is writing about. Plenty of people did. Don't get me wrong. I may have liked one.
You were there backing them up.
Yeah. Go on, lads, more.
You were like the High Sparrow, putting his little birds out there to spread his message around.
Proxy wars all over the place.
Exactly, yeah. So Ireland don't show up at World Cups, and that's a legitimate criticism of the team, and that's totally fine. I don't think anybody has any problems with that, because like we've choked at every World Cup that we've played in. So I think that's totally fine. But it's this stuff that, like, not allowing people to have a conversation in the language that is used around that. Like, but
is it okay to actually be cheering on the team and want the team to win? Because I do, but I just can't stand the nonsense around it, especially when there are people out there who love their rugby and who have grown up in their rugby the same way GA people have grown up in their GA and soccer, with their soccer. So those people, I'm a bit more forgiving of that, but it's the casual, I like rugby because it's in the paper all the time and it's spoken about all the time, and now I think I'll talk about what a great line Jared Payne has run. You know, it's those people who really buy into the nonsense talk that I find very, very difficult.
Do you hate everybody then furthering the analysis of GAA by starting to talk about and deepening their understanding of how the game is evolving by talking about tactics, by talking about...
No, I love tactical talks.
Do you hate then the people talking about false nines in football and...
No, it's
the evolution of tiki-taka?
It's more of a rugby thing. Now, I'll tell you, in soccer though, when they talk about Pep and it's the philosophy, it's always about his philosophy and hearing about different managers' philosophy. That really grates on me, as does this new thing with the foreign managers who are coming in and they're talking about our team had to suffer today. You mean you had to run around loads? I mean, obviously you did. That's a prerequisite in this sport. Stop saying you're suffering, making it out like it's some sort of a drama. I find that very difficult.
So you do hate everything, basically?
Yeah, I hate it.
When we distill it all down.
Yeah. Look, I'm OCD and have problems.
Aidan McCabe says, sometimes there are things and terms that you don't like or are used to that you just need to get over. I mean, I agree, Aidan. I don't really see why we just can't all get along and acknowledge the fact that,
what annoys you?
We all like sport.
You're always the man asking the questions. What annoys you?
I don't know. I need to think about that. I don't have any problem with people watching rugby and talking about rugby the way rugby gets talked about. I mean, yeah, I definitely think that the arrival of a bunch of coaches from Australia and New Zealand, where the discourse around this has become very,
infuriating,
a bit American footballized, where you can sometimes watch an American football game having watched it for 5 or 6 years and not have a clue what they're talking about, because they're talking about they're using the jargon that the teams use, and it's like, well, I don't really know what that means. And
it's a bit like horse racing for other people.
Exactly, yeah. And so some of the Australian coaches, Matt O'Connor was a bad man for talking about, talking. What's he saying? What does that mean? But I don't think too many of the fans are doing that. I think that this is a class issue, and I think fundamentally this is a class issue. I think that's what it comes down to.
I live in Ballsbridge. What are you talking about?
Well, there you go. I think that so you're
the home of rugby.
You're a body snatcher. Speaking the truth, they were boring. Dermot O'Keefe says he agrees with you, Shane. Yeah, the games weren't great, so that's definitely an issue. But last November the games were great, and he would have had the same complaints. But
I enjoyed the games. I thought the famous win in the friendly match against New Zealand was
such an asshole.
But the way they lined up in an 8 was fantastic. Facing down that haka. Yeah.
Shane's not alone either. Brendan Hill adds on Periscope, to be fair, rugby talk is pretty boring. Well, for all the rugby fans out there, we're going to give you your reward now for sitting through the diatribe that you've just suffered from Shane Stapleton. Here is Andrew Porter speaking with Oisin Langan, breaking down some of the nuances about being newly formed, newly minted tight head as opposed to the loose head that everybody assumed he was going to be.
Can you explain what it's like when you're engaging the technicalities, the things that you have to do? Because I think more and more people are finding the scrum fascinating.
Yeah, I think for me it's like I'm still kind of getting to grips with the tight head position now after switching over from loose head. But there's a lot of weight coming through you, so it's all about keeping your height and just sticking to what you've been doing in training. So yeah.
Talk to us about that transition from open to tight. What are the difficulties? What are the differences? Because again, most people have not been in a scrum. They especially haven't been in the really hardy part of that you're in.
It was quite when John Fogarty brought it up to me at the start, I was quite hesitant with it, because it's a completely new position for me, moving from the left side to the right side. But when you're training against the top guys in the world, like Jack McGrath, Ian Healy, week in, week out, it really helps. But in terms of difference, I'd say it kind of takes a bit more out of you around the park. Yeah. So just more or less scrumming against two guys at tight head, and scrumming against one guy at the left side. Yeah. So it would take a bit more out of you, but it's something I really have to get used to in terms of my conditioning as well, and just get my body used to it.
Is it a completely different thing? Is it it's not kind of going full back to out half? There's a lot of similarities. It is a massive jump, because people think, well, what's the difference between one side or the other?
Yeah, it was, at the beginning it was almost like writing with my left hand. It was almost it was hard to get used to, but with the training and the top level coaching I've been getting over the past few months, it's really been helping.
Yeah, thanks to Leinster Rugby for that video there. Oisin Langan speaking with Andrew Porter about the differences between loose head and tight head. The main difference, obviously, is the kerching. You get way more as a tight head than a loose head in the long run.
Like the blindside in NFL.
Very important to be able to lock down your scrum. Yeah.
Do you like all that technical talk there as well?
That wasn't very technical.
A little bit.
From the left to the right.
A little bit. But, it's great for Ireland now to have Carberry there because, if we have Carberry on the pitch at fullback and Sexton at 10, we've got a second first receiver there. Oh, that talk. On you go, Sojoy.
That's just ignorance.
Yeah, well, I know about it. I suppose it is ignorance. Yeah.
But it's like, is your game really boring? Do you present the same challenge to your opponents every time you have the ball, or do you have variance?
No, it's great, but it's just listening to the talk.
To people explaining that to you?
Yeah, well,
you don't like people explaining stuff to you?
Second first receiver.
How else would you refer it? What else would you call it?
Two playmakers, maybe.
And what's the difference?
A false 10 at 15.
Exactly. That's what it is.
I just find it annoying.
What kind of a wanker would you be to go, this is two false 10s?
Can I find it annoying? Is that okay?
You can, yeah.
You're the one who's drawn it out of me here.
What did you say there about having the most punchable head in the town?
There's just a couple of lads at home that say, and basically it tallies what you say in the King of Smugness, that I have the most punchable head in Borrisoleigh. So.
There you go. At least the nuances of small town life in Borrisoleigh are being brought out to bear on OTB this morning. You can always get in touch with us. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're also on YouTube. You can leave comments on the YouTube channel if you want. We're going to speak with Mona McSharry, who is an undoubted superstar in the making from Irish swimming's perspective. She was in town yesterday picking up an announcement from the Olympic Council of Ireland that she's part of their programme of athletes who they think are worth investing in. Now though, we're going to talk about Micheál Lundy, who is a footballer with Galway, who not that much was known about really. I mean, bits and pieces. Obviously, he missed the Connacht Championship win with Galway because he was travelling, but we're getting the opportunity to get to know a little bit more about him. He missed that in 2016, obviously, back with the team, obviously, and starting to star with them, star with Corfin as well. He was on the radio last night speaking with Joe. Here's how the conversation went.
The beauty is in New York, like there's whatnot you can do, like there's up-thing things you can do. It's not just like in Ireland you're waiting, I suppose there are some things for a big act to come over, but there's concerts, there's so many sports over there. There's always like different events happening. Like you have to pick there nearly every weekend what you want to do. Like it's the choice over there is what to do. Like rather than in here, it's like there's not too many options. But it's just probably just going out with a few friends you make over there. And I suppose during the summer you'll be playing a bit of football, and it regards just the social scene afterwards. And then I suppose during the week you could just go to a basketball game or a baseball or a hockey game. There's always something happening over there.
Oh yeah, what was the best sport you saw?
Well, I was a big fan of the basketball. I used to love basketball, so and I kind of still follow it. Like so, any basketball event, like I was happy enough to see LeBron James playing over there too. So I was lucky enough to see that.
Was he on form that night?
He did the job done by half time. He was sitting on the bench for it, so it was probably tickets wasted on the. It was money wasted on the tickets.
Yeah, so that's at the Garden. Tickets are pretty. Are they hard to get over there? Can you get tickets for the Knicks pretty easily? It's just they're expensive, or is it hard to actually even get the tickets?
No, I suppose they're just. I suppose some can be expensive. Different. You can be lucky different times you can get them, but no, they're so frequently of games. Like it's easy to pick them up.
Yeah. Anything else? Any other sport over there that was worth going along to?
I know they're all interesting. Like the Americans are very good at selling their sports. Like the big everything up and kind of make it exciting to put on a show no matter what's playing. Like so, they do that side of things very well. And
when you're sitting over there, I presume some Sunday morning watching Galway win a Connacht title, is it like massive regret? Oh my God, I've missed out on this, or what was your mindset as that's all unfolding?
No, like your initial, you get up in the morning. I suppose the game's on a bit earlier over there, so you probably roll out of bed and watch it. It's probably only around 9 o'clock in the morning over there. But I suppose there's a bit of like you're a bit jealous of the lads there. Like they're going to be after winning the Connacht title, but then I suppose then a couple hours later you walk in and you're in the middle of Manhattan, and then I suppose you realise you're in New York, and life isn't too bad after all. Like.
Yeah, reasonable perspective there on somebody missing out. I mean, I'd say the truth is you desperately hope that they get close, but somehow there's an equaliser, goes to replay, and they lose the replay, and geez, we would have won if Lundy was there.
Yeah. It's like 10 days out, he had the appendix out. I mean, have you had it out?
No,
appendix, that is. It ain't no fun.
No.
I think a few weeks after it, I played in goals in an Astro game, and it wasn't advisable for him to play in a game like that. Yeah. Which is many multiples of it. Brave man.
Yeah. are we getting to know players like this? Am I right about that? So I have this sense that like the inter-county players who go deep into the club championship, this is when they start doing interviews, and they're much more relaxed than they would be, because much and all, as the club manager is going to give them grief, it's not the same level of grief that they're going to get if they potentially say anything of vague interest.
Yeah, and you have to think that because the county is such a massive thing compared with the club. So if you're the club guy from your town that's playing with the county, you're such a huge lightning rod in the town that the manager isn't really going to challenge you if you say something in the media or if you say something some way controversial. Last week before the Corofin game against Castlebar, I interviewed Kieran Fitzgerald, the former full-back for Galway, and I was asking him all about being a guard and having to show up at the likes of traffic accidents or domestic violence, and then the toll that takes on you and trying to go to training. So it was great to get that opportunity to talk to him and see what is the person like beneath. And I think we're going to talk about the videos that we've started doing with Off the Ball as well, and it's trying to find out a little bit more about the people and not just the nameless, fit, identical player running around the field.
Yeah, okay, well, should we get into that now, and we'll come back off the back of it and have that chat, because there is this sense that we don't really know that much about these players who we watch week in, week out doing amazing things, and certainly we know less and less about the referees and the character of the people involved. So David Goff obviously has a very interesting story, and Shane and Joseph went off and made this really interesting video. The full thing is up on YouTube. It's about 40 minutes long, and with various snippets of it on facebook.com/off the ball as well. But here he is particularly talking about the difficulties that he faced before he came out as a gay man.
It's a really difficult thing to explain to people who've never gone through it. There's this inbuilt fear in you that you're going to let people down for some reason, that you should be ashamed of who you are, that for some reason people are going to see you and treat you differently. And that's not the case. As soon as you take that step into what is the unknown, the weight that's lifted off you is huge. I drove myself into work, into refereeing, into sport, into tennis, to keep myself busy and my mind active, to stop thinking about it. And the worst part for me was driving. Driving was the one time when I felt that I had time to think. And sitting in the drive home from my house in Dublin down to Slane was about 45 minutes to an hour, and it was the worst hour every week. It was like someone had a belt around my chest and they were tightening the belt. The stress was huge, and I just couldn't bear it anymore. And in January 2011, I just decided that this had to be the end of it. I couldn't live with myself anymore. And once I took that step, just the weight lifted and my life moved on.
Yeah, really remarkable stuff from David Goff there. And I guess we did our first video with your cousin Vinny.
Yeah.
And that went ballistic. It turns out people are really interested in these kind of offbeat stories. David Goff's story isn't offbeat. It's really important. It's like, he's a national figure. We had him on the show the day that the referendum passed as well. And that was actually the first conversation I'd ever had with him. And you don't want to just identify somebody as somebody associated with their sexuality, because ultimately it doesn't matter in the long run. But like, we are definitely at a stage in our history where it's not something that's part of the conversation all the time, and definitely it's very important for people like David to come out, have their stories told, for those kids who are those kids and those grown-ups who are driving home, or those kids who are going to school every day and just not quite sure of their identity. So having him come out and tell that story was really important, and I was surprised that was actually the first time that he'd done it.
Yeah, he was saying to me that like nobody had asked him these questions quite like this, and that actually sounds like self-promotion. It's not intended that way, but the way I researched for it is I live with a gay guy from a small town in Roscommon, and he gave me a lot of kind of insights into how sensitive you'd be in terms of like people would make a comment. And I brought up with David about Conor McGregor using the F word, which is the pejorative term for homosexual, and like he'd have a hair trigger reaction to that sort of stuff. And as the conversation went on, I mentioned to David a conversation that I'd had with my housemate Paul, which is growing up in a small town, the only experiences his father, his parents and family would ever have of gayness would basically be the Pride Parade when it's on TV, which involves bells and whistles. It sometimes involves scantily clad men cross-dressing.
Primarily because this is the way that small town people, like, because the whole notion of of anything other is repressed in Ireland and has been for generations. So like it wasn't. I know what you mean. Like
well, it builds up because it's obviously suppressed at home, and I'm from a small town myself as well. So to be suppressed at home, so then it explodes on the scene up in a pride parade in Dublin, for example. And I mean, I'm aware that I might say something insensitive because I haven't been in that headspace for like my housemate was for years, or like for example David Goff was for 6 years between when he realised it at 22 and when he came out in January 2011. So I understand that I might be explaining this and I might say something a little bit insensitive without meaning it, but essentially that he was bottling this up and like trying to explain it to your family and come out to your family when the only experience that they may have, and there's obviously people from small towns who are very well read and very worldly, but that you're trying to tell people that are close to you that I'm gay when the only experience they may have ever seen.
All the more reason that we need more people in pop culture, all the more reason that we need people in day-to-day life for it not to become a big deal.
And Mark Foster, the former swimmer for Britain, he's after coming out now, age 47, and a couple of his quotes is, "I got really good at the dance of telling half-truths." And David Goff was saying that that was something that he was very concerned about, would he give a lingering look, would he stand a certain way, this kind of stuff. And also that Mark Foster adds in that being a gay sportsman still verges on the taboo, which of course it does, because do we see any professional footballers out there saying it? No. Donal Logue came out while he played, which is a very brave thing. Conor Cusack came out as well. And of course there are gay people throughout the GA and we just don't know about it. And hopefully David's story helps other people feel more at ease and feel they don't have to bottle it up or worry about how the Pride Parade might make their parents feel about what sort of a person they are.
Yeah, we shouldn't obsess too much about that either. Like it's, that's one tiny element of culture.
Can I develop just a tiny bit more on that? And the reason that the Pride Parade thing is relevant is because I think there's a spectrum of things in life. You might be like this might be straight, you might be that straight, or you might be kind of straight, and there might be, how homosexual are you? Are you very, very kind of feminine, or very, very, very masculine, or are you in the middle, or something like that? And it doesn't matter. But if you're a guy who feels he's a really, really masculine sort of guy, but the only thing that's ever been shown out there is the Pride Parade when people are cross-dressing or in heels, that mightn't help you to come out to your parents.
You're talking here about your mate, right? So this is like this specific story.
And also, it was relevant to Goff, it resonated with him as well.
Like, all the more reason why it's more important that sports people come out and have these conversations. And there's always this sense that it's no one's business. It really is nobody's business what happens or how people choose to live their lives. But the reason why it's helpful is that it's good for role models to exist out there. And again, I'm always worried about I always remember a taxi ride I had in Napoli where I was like in the full throes of my Diego Maradona obsession, and the taxi driver was like, "Yeah, great footballer, shit human." I was like, "How can you say that?" And then you start to read about him, you learn about all these things, and it turns out, oh my God, Diego Maradona's a terrible human being. And it's like, sports people shouldn't really be role models. We shouldn't have Conor McGregor as a role model. We shouldn't have Lance Armstrong as a role model. And yet it's inevitable that kids end up looking up to the sports people in their lives. And also it's inevitable as you go along, you start looking at people going, you do a lot of things that I really value and you have a value system that I respect. And so the more David Goffs in the world that there are who are implicated in everyday life, the easier it is for everybody to just have these conversations, and the easier it is for teenagers to come out to their parents, and the easier it is. Like, I think we're making quantum leaps forward, but it's not something that we can be complacent about.
And he seemed very keen to tell his story as well. So I had a friend of mine, John Shannon, asked him, he was in college with him, a guy I heard about, and he was in college with him, and he asked him, and he was straight up happy to do it. I think he wanted to get his story out there. Nigel Owens is someone he has great time for and really kind of looks at him as a bit of an inspiration, because obviously he's a referee at the top of his game. He's openly gay as well. They follow each other on Twitter. I was hoping Nigel might retweet it to his 301k followers, but he hasn't yet. He hasn't seen it yet, obviously. Yeah, it's very important because he's just a normal day-to-day guy, and for other people, most people aren't great superstar sportsmen. Most people are just normal people, and if they could feel like because David Goff has come out and the world hasn't exploded, that maybe they can do the same.
Okay, so that was our piece with David Goff. It came on the back as well of the Vinnie Stapleton piece. All of those available for your viewing perusal on youtube.com/offtheball or facebook.com/offtheball. I know you're working on a Niall Donahue piece as well.
Yeah, so at the weekend, I've been in contact with Davy Burke, because he spoke about Niall Donahue, who took his own life in October the 23rd, 2013. Just a fine prospect for Galway hurling. And so for whatever reason, it kind of got on top of him and he took his own life. But Davy mentioned him in his speech. His cousin Conor Whelan, who you mentioned earlier, he's his cousin, and he held up a flag with Niall's image after they won the All-Ireland. So I contacted Davy, as did a couple of writers who wanted to do written pieces. So the three of us showed up on Saturday, along with Joseph Conroy, who came with me and videoed it. And it was initially supposed to be Conor, David, Niall's brother Shane, and also Justin Fahy, who's a clubmate in Kilbecanty. And as it turned out, Niall's father, Francie, was there as well. And I have to say, the bravery with which they spoke, and the honesty was, there were times when I had shivers down my spine just listening to the stuff that they said. And I know our producer Tommy watched back some of the clips, and he was like, that was very heavy stuff. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to yet, but it's real life stuff. And listening to Francie talk about the day itself, and listening to Shane, who was based in Australia at the time, talking about hearing the news. I mean, I don't want to tell the story now, and I also don't want to ruin the story for the two guys who were writing their pieces as well, but it's just incredibly heavy stuff.
Yeah, again, the type of thing that really we have to talk about, because if we don't talk about it, people turn away, it gets repressed, then there's a stigma attached to it, and the whole issue of mental health. Like, sport is only really important in that it helps us talk to each other as human beings. That's kind of the best thing. It's supposed to bring us together. I know, obviously, it drives us apart when we have our rows and debates and stuff, but like, the beauty of it is that actually it can help to allow human beings to communicate with each other.
There was one part that, so I interviewed them separately for the video piece, because you couldn't have three different interviewers kind of interrupting each other and dragging the conversation in a different direction. So I think it's okay to talk a little bit about this and not ruin the other two writers' pieces, which was Davy Burke started talking about, we had mentioned mental health, and he started talking about being a teacher in a school and how kids are so obsessed now with social media. How many likes did you get for that picture? Why didn't he send me that Snapchat when he sent it to you? And the dangers of this, and people's mental health has been affected by it. And it was just a very important point that because of all these online interactions, human interaction has been eroded. And he sees that as a big problem coming down the line. And I have a friend on the Board of Education, and he says, yeah, it's a big thing. And they're not actually, the Board of Education's plan is not to actually ban social media, but to give people the tools to deal with that.
Yeah.
To be okay with that.
You hope that the horse hasn't bolted, and that maybe banning it for schools is actually the only way.
But it does erode it. And I mean, different things erode human interaction as well. Like if you're in a bubble playing with a team, and you're constantly trying to block out the outside and not do media interviews or whatever, you're kind of living in a little bit of a false reality. Even you and your hero worship of Diego Maradona, it's a false reality.
Completely, yeah, makes no sense.
Even the GA or Irish sport like rugby or whatever, you start to construct a false reality of you're in that bubble, you're blocking everyone else out because it's all about the team and all that. But like being a human first and foremost, and the human interaction, and even recently I would try and turn my phone off for hours at a stretch, because you realise this has turned me into a bit of an idiot. And like even watching TV, you might be watching a game but you're half flicking on Twitter, so you're not fully taking that in.
Yeah.
And you're not fully, so I mean there's a long way to go in these type of things, but they've kind of snuck up insidiously in Irish society, in all society.
All right, so that piece should be coming out some point this weekend. Keep an eye on it on YouTube and Facebook as well. Now let's move on. Irish swimming superstar Mona McSharry, who's just turned 17, has had an incredible 2017 so far. She popped into the studio yesterday for a chat as the OCI announced that 12 Irish Olympic hopefuls will receive Olympic Solidarity Scholarships to assist with their qualification and preparations for Tokyo 2020. Have a look. All right, I'm delighted to say we've got Mona McSharry here. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm doing well.
It's been an absolutely amazing year for you. Have you stopped to think about it at all, or are you kind of still in the middle of it?
I have stopped to think about it kind of afterwards, and now it's kind of in the past. When you start a new season, you kind of just forget what happened in the old season. and that is the way it was for me. I think until you kind of finish your career, you don't really realise, you know, what you've done, because, you know, once you finish something, there's always the next thing, and, you know, there's the next thing you're looking forward to. So that's kind of, I did stop and I did realise, you know, wow, how amazing this is, especially with all the support I had when I got home, you know, all the homecomings and everything. But yeah, it's just a new season now.
So in August you won the World Junior Championships. You won 2 medals.
Yeah.
And nearly got a third.
Yeah, nearly.
An amazing week.
Yeah, no, it was one of the best, you know, weeks of my life, really. You know, it was tough and it was hard going, but it was just such an amazing time for me, because it's what I love doing and I did so well.
Swimming is one of those sports where you kind of have a fair idea of how you're going to do heading into it, and that, like, you know, you're in the ballpark of winning or medaling or being competitive because of the times you're putting up in training. So was there a serious level of expectation, pressure on yourself coming from within, and the training that you've been doing, thinking, you know, I could do that here?
Yeah, I think there was, especially after European, you know, after I did so well at Europeans, I myself and thought, you know, everyone else is kind of watching me now, and I put a lot of pressure on myself to, you know, to do well and, you know, to get to the top. So it was difficult, and it was a challenging couple of weeks to try and stay positive and, you know, realise that, you know, the work I'm doing is enough. Yeah. But yeah, no, definitely it is, you know, you kind of do know where you are, but at the same time, you're not sure, because it could all go wrong or it could all go right on the day.
Especially, again, it's one of those sports where, you know, you don't get in the pool properly, or you get in your own head for half a second and the race is gone. So you've got to do everything right, and you've got to have the process in place. How did you get good at that kind of stuff? How did you learn how to build your own processes and kind of think your way through those issues?
Well, it's all practice, really. Practice makes perfect, you know, and it's very important that you do kind of figure out what's good for you, because it's different for everyone. Like, I've got a really set routine, you know, before I, you know, get onto the block, and, you know, I have stuff that I need to do and I feel I need to do to, you know, be prepared. And it's very important that you don't, you know, kind of go out of what you're doing. You can't lose concentration for a second, because every split second counts. Yeah. But yeah, it is all practice. You know, you have to make sure you're doing it right in training, and then you will do it right in competition.
What kind of stuff do you need to do before you get on the block? Is it superstitions, or is it like talking through the visualizations? Is it more scientific? Visualizations would be kind of in the call room before I walk out, and then before I walk out, I kind of, you know, I take off my clothes at a certain time, and, you know, and then I do certain warm-ups, you know, just to make sure I'm heated up, and it's always the same. And then I'll always splash myself with water before my race. You know, there's just deep breathing, all that stuff that, you know, everyone thinks, okay, it's, you know, it's tiny, but for me, it just all adds up to being ready when I get on the block. Yeah, it's funny, reading about the All Blacks, Richie McCaw used to, whenever he felt he was getting too angry, he would kind of put his arm around his wrist and try and start thinking from the blue side of his brain again. And loads of people dismiss that stuff as complete nonsense, but Richie McCaw then goes on to captain the team to win the World Cup, and there's a bit of calmness about them in the last couple of minutes. I mean, you can argue the toss either way or another, but you know, some of the world's best athletes who have achieved great things find that they need to do those things. So are you reading that kind of stuff? Are you getting help with that kind of stuff? Or are you just developing that on your own? How does that work? I'm developing it mostly on my own, because it is, you know, it's whatever I think is right. And, you know, you kind of just have to test that as well. You know, it is trial and error with that too. You know, like, I have a huge breathing problem that I get kind of, you know, overwhelmed, or I feel like I can't breathe before my race, and I'm not sure why it happens, but it's very important for me to, you know, deep breathing and make sure I'm getting the air in, because I probably am, but I feel like I amn't, and for me mentally I need to, you know, be right, and my coach helps me with that. You know, we do a couple of deep breathing exercises and stuff, so in that, you know, she does help me there, but it's mostly, you know, myself kind of figuring out what I need. It's a pretty amazing thing to be able to overcome. Like, a lot of people would feel that they need the outside help of a sports psychologist or somebody like that to get over that, but you've managed to think your way through it. Yeah, you know, yeah, it's something that, you know, it still kind of bothers me a bit, you know, before races, but I kind of just have to get on with it and, you know, figure out, you know, how is the best way that I can overcome this. And, you know, my coach is amazing for that. You know, she does help me with everything, and I feel like I have kind of sorted the problem. Yeah. If it comes back, we may need to look into other, you know, ideas, but at the moment it's... So you're 17, right? Yeah, I am. Still living in Grange and Sligo. Yeah. What does the future hold? Like, do you go to America to go to college? Do you stay in Ireland? And what is the pathway for somebody who is as good as you are at 17 right now? Well, my plan myself in my head right now would be, you know, to finish my leaving cert in 2019 and then take a year out before the Olympics in 2020 and just train from home.
because it's going so well for me.
Yeah.
And then after that, I think I might do 4 years in college, and I'm not quite sure yet. I would love to go to America, but I'm keeping my options open at the moment.
Yeah, I guess you have plenty of time to be worrying about that.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to have those options. Like, I mean, I presume most of the American colleges would be pretty interested in having an Irish Olympian on their books.
I hope, yeah.
That's the plan. To take us back a little bit to the point where you actually realised that getting up at God knows what time every morning, 5 or 6 mornings a week, and driving into Ballyshannon is something that you wanted to do. When did you realise that this was like, I really like this?
Well, I think, I started the early mornings when I was in 6th class, and, that's young enough, but back then it was like it's a big deal, and it was actually a nice thing. I loved getting up in the morning. I jumped out of bed because, you're transitioning from junior to senior in the club, and, you're allowed to get up that early, and you're being asked to come to the early sessions. And then I just built from there, and I'm an early riser anyway, and it's tough some mornings, especially now that it's cold outside, and you just want to curl her up and go back to sleep. But it's just I'm so dedicated, and I really do love the sport that it just drives me to get up.
So you were obviously pretty good already by the time 6th class came around, that they were asking you to come in early.
Yeah, no, it kind of just built from there. That's when I started, really kind of realising, yes, I am good, and I started climbing up, because it was only a year then later that I kind of got onto this Swim Ireland. I was on the HP, and it was great because I was asked to go to Canada, and that was
at like 12 or 13.
13, yeah.
Right.
So that was my first time ever leaving the country, without my parents, and I did so well over there that it kind of sparked this little thing. Like, I love this traveling. I love going away and meeting other people, and basically blind racing, because you've no idea what they're going to do.
Yeah. So it's not as if you don't have that sense, I could actually win this yet. You have to get in the pool and do it.
Yeah, exactly. You have no idea who your competitors are until you see them.
Yeah. That's a very strange form of racing for swimmers. I guess now you must look back at that and go, oh, that because if they were to put you in the pool, you would know exactly to the last second who you're up against.
Yeah, exactly. Like, still, even, when you compete in Ireland, you know who you're racing against, and you know how they swim to an extent because you've trained with them, and you know what they're capable of. And even, even if you do know someone's time, and you've never seen them swim, you never know. They might be going faster, they might be going slower.
Yeah.
You just have to wait and see, really.
So, it's not a noted swimming stronghold, Grange. It's like you're the first swimmer, I think, to come from there who's reached this level. How did that happen?
I'm not sure, it's really, anyone from anywhere can do whatever they want. It doesn't have to be, from a certain area, and you don't need certain things as long as you're dedicated. That's the most important thing.
Normally there's an amazing coach or parents who kind of are former swimmers, or do you have any of that stuff going on? Or
Bit of both, I've got an amazing coach, and, she's so good. I've got 2 amazing coaches, and they both work really hard, to get me where I am, and, to put in effort, all the time, so that I feel 100%. And my parents are just amazing. They're fully committed. They drive me here and there, and it's a lot that they have to commit to as well.
Yeah.
But
it's grand for you getting up in the mornings, but they also have to get up.
Yeah, exactly.
And concentrate on the road.
Yeah. I can sleep in the car, but they can't. So no, it's great that they're so committed, and they'll help me along this journey, because I couldn't do it without them.
And did you show promise as a kid? Like, were you kind of a little fish at the age of 5 and 6, kind of like, was it always there, or is this a function of the coaching and the hard work and the dedication as well? Like, what combination of talent and hard work is it?
Well, I only started learning how to swim when I was 5, after I nearly drowned in Austria on holiday. But
normally that puts people off.
Yeah, well, I don't remember it. I just parents said, right, we're getting her swimming lessons. So I think after that I just started competing, and I mightn't have been the best as a child. I only really started getting good later. I wasn't a superstar as a kid, but I did enough, and I loved it myself, that it didn't matter how well I did. It was just I love the competing side of it. I love the aggression, and I love just getting in there and racing.
That's interesting, because it means there's probably a bunch of kids in Ballyshannon who'll be like, oh yeah, I beat her when I was 8 or 9, and then suddenly obviously you're like lapping them over 50 metres. But so the competition is the thing that actually inspired you, like that was the thing that you decided that really got you into it?
Yeah, like I started with community games, which, you know, a lot of young kids do start with community games. It's great, I think, for young people to start there and build their way up. And I think, you know, after that I kind of started training with the Marlin Sub Club then after I'd done that, and they started, you know, entering me in competitions and doing proper, you know, real, you know, competitions and all that and different events. And, it, you know, I kind of just learned to love my stroke and love what I was doing. Yeah, and just talk to us about that then. So you swim, most swimmers tend, unless you're like the 50-metre sprinter exclusives, but you tend to do a bunch of different strokes, particularly earlier in your career as you kind of decide which you're going to be. At what point do you think you'll specialise? Will you ever specialise, or what do you want to do? I love, like, breaststroke, you know, is the main stroke at the moment. You know, I concentrated solely on breaststroke last year, although I do love the 100 and 200 IM as well, and the front crawl events, you know, and even short snappy events like the 50s. I'll give them all a lash. Like, I'm more of a sprinter at the moment, and I think I will, you know, by time specialise with the 100 breaststroke and maybe the 50 breaststroke, but at the moment I'm still kind of leaving it to the three of them, you know, 100, 200 and 50. And is part of that because, like, you know, you're clearly already thinking about the Olympic Games, but you just have to, sometimes it's the luck of the draw in terms of the amount of time between events, sometimes it's the level of competition in a specific event. You've got to give yourself enough opportunity to make the Olympic Games, be fully fit, and then go, actually, there's a bit of a soft spot in that draw, I could definitely take that. Is that, like, do you think like that now, or is it just exclusively about, this is who I want to be and I want my identity to be wrapped up in these events? Yeah, it's more kind of like, you know, these are my events and this is, you know, this is what I could do good in. You know, I try not to look at psych sheets because it doesn't work for me. I get too stressed out and I get too tensed and it just kind of messes with my head a bit before the competition, so I try and kind of stay away and try not look at who's going to be there until I get there. So no, we'd be more picking events on, you know, what we've trained up for, and, you know, there's a couple of last points. Gráinne Murphy obviously was an amazing underage young swimmer who then for whatever reason never fully quite fulfilled her potential as a senior. How do you make sure that you kind of learn from other people who've gone before you? Is that something you think about at all? Yeah, I guess you just, like, it was, you know, Gráinne Murphy was an amazing swimmer, and it's a pity how it did end, but I guess you do just kind of have to learn from it. But at the same time, you know, she didn't, you know, what happened, you know, was kind of just unexpected, you know, and if you know, some things just happen and you can't help it, you know. So it's all on luck as well. But yeah, you just have to try and stay concentrated and, you know, not be doing things that will, you know, affect you or be detrimental to what you're doing. You just have to, you know, make the right decision. And then the technical side of the sport, because it is highly technical, do you, like, obviously you work very closely with your coaches, do you kind of go outside and seek external input from time to time just to make sure you're going along the right path, or do you just try and create a bubble around you with your current team? No, well, I'm an in-touch athlete and I go up to Dublin quite a bit when I can, and that's a completely different, you know, that'll be a completely different coaching from my coach, and that's great because you get, you know, different inputs, and they might see something that my coach doesn't, or vice versa. And, you know, I get to train with the other athletes, and that is good. I think it's very beneficial because you just kind of, it's a different program as well, so you're just kind of getting out of that. Yeah, I wouldn't be trapping myself in a bubble, trying not to anyway. Mona, tell us about what training you're doing at the moment. Like, what's an average week? An average week would be 17 hours, 12 in the water, and then I also do gym, core and flexibility on top of that, and then I get up at about 4:30 in the morning for an hour and a half or a 2-hour session, and then I'd be done at about 8 o'clock, and then I go to school, and then after that I'll come back in the evening for either another training session or a gym session. So the 12 hours in the pool, is that a mixture of sprint work and endurance, or how does that work? Yeah, I have like 3 or 4 sessions a week that I know are going to be very difficult, like, you know, you horribly painful. But they're the ones that you have to just give 100%, and then you have the other ones which you also are more focused on technique, and you also have to give 100%, but they're more like working on, you know, your strokes and your turns, and both are very important, and you have to, you know, include both, because even I do some distance work just to build up so that I'm not constantly sprinting, even though I am, you know, targeting sprinting, just so that I can, you know, be kind of like built up in all areas. Yeah, and what kind of stuff are you doing in the gym? Mostly weights, and then we do some core stuff as well, and then a bit of power as well. At the moment I'm kind of in a set just building muscle kind of, and then I'll be moving on to a strength program for the next 2 months, 3 months, and then after that it'll be all power.
You kind of have to love this to be able to do all that and go to school at the same time.
Yeah, you really do, and I do love it. Like, you know, it's amazing. I don't even know what I'd do without it, to be honest. Like the 2 weeks that I get off a year, you know, they're amazing because you're not, but at the same time, they're, you know, you don't know what to do with yourself because, you know, you're constantly getting up at, you know, such time, and you have to go here and you have to go there, that, you know, when you've nothing on, it's just kind of, it's just so, you know, you've nothing to do. It's very boring. Yeah. So for me, that kind of shows me, okay, I actually do love this because I miss it when I'm not doing it.
Okay, so then you don't have any fear of missing out when your mates are going to gigs or whatever it is that they're doing?
No, I don't, because, yeah, it's a pity, and sometimes, you know, in the moment I will be upset, but when I look back then and I realise, you know, all that I've done and how far I've come, I realise there is a bigger picture here. You know, it's not just about that, and I will have my time when I can, you know, have fun, but right now I need to concentrate. You know.
Was there ever any point earlier in your career before you started to make the breakthrough where you thought, actually, you know what, this is too hard and I'm going to, like, were there ever doubts or moments along the way?
No, I can't say there was. I've never felt like I've wanted to give up the sport. I've never had any issues where I feel like, no, this is not working for me, and I hope I never do, because, you know, I love it so much. But when I do, you know, it's just time to walk away, because I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't love it, and if I don't, you know, there's no point, really.
Yeah, fair enough. So it's not, the 2 weeks of the year aren't obviously Christmas, are they? That's not when you're downtowns, are no. There's like 2 random weeks across the year.
It's 52 weeks in the year, and then we do like a 50-week training program depending on whether, you know, the competitions. Like last year I did a 52-week program and then took 2 weeks off, and that was very long. But this year it'll be kind of just after August, because that's my last competition. I'll take 2 weeks off there. And I get like 2 days at Christmas because the pool's not open, so, you know, we just take them 2 days off as well. Yeah.
They'd probably give you the keys now if you ask for them at this stage, but like, you're like, no, I'm not asking for them.
It's okay.
You can take those 2 days.
Yeah.
So in December you're off to Copenhagen.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. I'm really excited for that. You know, that's about 2 weeks away now, and nearly starting taper, so it should be really interesting.
This is the senior European short course.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
And what level of expectation do you have about your ability to compete against the seniors?
Well, this is my first senior meet where I'm actually competing as a senior. I have nothing to fall back on. Like, you know, it used to be just experience, but now, you know, this is where I am now. This is the competitions I will be going to and the people I'll be competing against. It's just to keep, you know, in the zone. Don't be let outer people, you know, disrupt you, and, you know, make sure that I swim well.
Because we hear there's a bit of that in swimming, where like people will step in front of you. You know, if one of your opponents knows that you need to do stuff in a certain order, they're, I'm accidentally bumping into you, or they're standing in the wrong way.
Yeah, no, it is intimidating in the call room. You know, if you're not, you have to just have a strong mindset to, you know, stay focused and realise, you know, I just try and imagine I'm the only one in the room, there's no one else there, because if you start looking at what they're doing and go, okay, maybe I should be doing that, you know, you just kind of start to doubt yourself. So really my targets and hopes are that, you know, I'll compete well, and hopefully I'll get it out of the heats and maybe into the final and just see how it goes. Yeah,
because I guess, again, like, you know what time you expect to do, and you also know that if you hit that level you should go to a certain distance in this competition, and that this is really a stepping stone along the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly it. Like, there's a lot of stepping stones along the way, and the big target is 2020 Olympics. So it's really just kind of introducing myself to where I am now and kind of building it from there.
What age do you think you're supposed to peak at as a swimmer?
I'm not really sure. Like, it depends on the person. Like, you've got swimmers like Katinka Husu who are 27, 28, and they're, you know, still, you know, amazing. She's still on top of the leaderboard. So, you know, it really depends on the person. I think I'm only beginning now. I don't think I've peaked yet. I hope I'm still going up, so yeah.
Well, listen, I hope you enjoy your 2 days off at Christmas. Best of luck in Copenhagen. Thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Mona McSharry there at the announcement yesterday that she was part of a new grant scheme from the Olympic Council of Ireland, and best of luck to her in the European Short Course Championships in Copenhagen. Now, loads of comments coming through funnily enough. Most of them aimed at you, some of them aimed at me.
In support of me, I would have
on getting to know players now more in the GAA, Wayne Ryan says, I actually really don't know any of the new up-and-coming hurlers. The helmets make them all the same. All the more reason why they need to do more interviews during the week, I would say.
A lot of sound fellas out there. It'd be nice to get to know them.
Larry Ryan on Periscope says, every rugby game is an apocalyptic event. Everything is at stake. The last game ever played. It's true. The marketing around the rugby frequently has in the past, I would say it's changed actually recently. It's got far better. The Team of Us campaign is brilliant compared to some of the other stuff in the past that would have happened where it was like, oh, these are the most amazing, and all that nonsense that they used to get Tom McGurk to do, those voiceovers where he would wander around the empty stadium. Like,
what's the guy on BBC who kind of talks really like everything is a war?
It's
is it Eddie
Jones? Yeah.
Oh, it's a horror show. Brave, heroic. Yeah. Sure.
There was a brilliant comment in here. I presume Shane is not bored by all the nonsense about knowing the amateur players all have jobs to go to and all that crap.
Yeah. Oh, it's a horror show, yeah. That's why I tend to not really buy into that myself, but I can't control what everyone else says. I do notice a couple of GA writers talking about emotion now as well.
Oh yeah, here we go. Bobby Goonan. Guessing Shane doesn't find the constant narrative of GA players being amateur, love of the club, long commutes for training, working as your postman, as nauseating as talking about rugby. It's a fair point. And here's the thing. When you start the war, you have to either end it or find some truce. I'm looking for the truce.
I'm looking for the war here.
But
like battle, 100 years war.
Stapleton was trying so hard to hide his all-out contempt for rugby. I'd love to hear his off-air take. Well, Jack. It's actually not that different. It goes a little bit further. It's a little bit further.
Did you ever play rugby growing up?
I did, yeah.
Yeah. For how long? Did you like it?
I did. I liked it a bit, and then a friend of mine had his nose badly broken in a game that we were playing, maybe under 14 or under 16, and I was like, I don't know if I really want to play this anymore.
Sounds like you were playing devil's advocate for rugby here, defending it.
No, like I like the sport. It's like the only properly run professional sport in the country. The League of Ireland needs much more help than it gets from the FAI and from Irish football fans. And they've made great strides in progressing the sport. Sure, it's far too small a playing base, and sure, it doesn't actually reach into communities the way it needs to do. And I think their treatment of women who play rugby has been abysmal over the last 18 months in particular. So they've got miles to go, but like, all the sports have miles to go. Go on, give it to me.
Okay, I'm going to read out the bit of sense that we got here. Through all this nonsense, the bit of sense from Nisha Waldron. He tweeted in, oh my God, Ger brought up the class issue again. It's not a class issue, it's a bullshit issue. Couldn't have said it better myself.
Are you saying there's no bullshit around GAA?
There is bullshit attached to every sport.
Yeah.
But I just find that particular brand extra nauseating.
I think that most of the stuff that you have an issue with is marketing around it. Is like that... those marketing campaigns in the past that would have said, this is rugby country. I know that's the one that seems to stick in the craw mostly, those billboards.
No, it's more the turns of phrase, but like, it's evidently
explain
not
another way of explaining like first receiver to me. It means that you're actually changing your game plan. That's all. It's just a tactical thing.
Look, it's the emotional pitch of the game.
I've never once said it.
You have said it.
Never once.
That's the one.
Never once.
You've definitely said get to the pitch of the game. Hopefully you've left out
but sometimes teams don't get to the pitch of a game. Like...
what do you mean by that?
Where you're engaging with the other team, you're matching them, and you're trying to dictate the terms of play. And there are countless, I would say, Waterford didn't quite get to the pitch of, after Galway got back at them, Waterford started the game really well. No, Galway started the game really well.
Yeah, they went 4-0 up. You mean you didn't get stuck in straight away?
So you can phrase it however you want.
Started poorly. You were tentative. You weren't at the emotional pitch. Spare me.
I never once had emotional pitch. Right, next Wednesday, our most exclusive... I think it's next Thursday. Next Thursday, our most exclusive Off the Ball Roadshow yet is rolling into our most exclusive venue yet. It's happening at the Stella Theatre in Rathmines with thanks to HeinekenRugbyClub.com. Brian O'Driscoll, Keith Wood are going to be joined by a pair of modern rugby, by a giant of modern rugby, it says. My eyesight not so good today. Former Ireland coach, current Wales and Lions coach Warren Gatland is going to join us. It's going to be a night of crack and nostalgia, and there'll be some great prizes to be won too. To be on the chance of winning a pair of tickets tonight, just answer this question. In 1999, Warren Gatland gave Brian O'Driscoll his international debut against what team? You can keep an eye on offtheball.com on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram for more chances to win. It's the Off the Ball Roadshow live at the Stella Theatre, Rathmines, with thanks to HeinekenRugbyClub.com.
I'll be there.
Right, that's pretty much all I got time for today. This debate will continue to rage on Facebook.com/offtheball and also wherever you get your social media from us. Pádraig McKeown says, hey Pádraig, I'm Mona McSharry. That girl's only 17. What presence and maturity. And Willie Casey says, seems to be a very in-tune athlete and speaks brilliantly. I'd love to see her do well. I think we can all agree that we can get behind the swimming career of Mona McSharry. That's something to believe in at this point. Shane, good stuff?
Great stuff, Charlie.
We've all survived. We'll see you again tomorrow at 7:45. Make sure you tune in from 7 o'clock tonight to Off the Ball on News Talk.